Bruce Lee was more than a martial artist. He was a global icon who redefined action cinema, challenged deep-rooted traditions, and inspired millions of people across the world. Yet at the very height of his fame, his sudden and mysterious death sent shockwaves around the globe. For decades, questions have surrounded the true cause of his passing, and only now are clearer answers beginning to emerge. Bruce Lee was born on November 27, 1940, in San Francisco's Chinatown. His parents, Li Hoi Chuan and Grace Ho, were visiting the United States as part of a traveling Cantonese opera company. Bruce entered the world during the hour and year of the dragon according to Chinese astrology, a sign that many believed pointed to greatness. His Chinese stage name later became Li Shulong, meaning Li the Little Dragon, while his birth name, Li Junfan, carried his mother's heartfelt wish that he would one day return to America. Just 4 months after his birth, the family returned to Hong Kong, and by December 1941, Japan had launched a brutal attack on the city, beginning 4 years of military occupation. Bruce spent his early childhood surrounded by food shortages, violence, and constant fear, experiences that left a lasting impression on a boy who was still learning to walk and talk. Despite the chaos of his surroundings, Bruce showed an early gift for performance. He made his first film appearance as a baby, carried on screen in a movie called Golden Gate Girl. By the age of 9, he had starred in The Kid, and by 18, he had already appeared in 20 films. Most teenagers were still figuring out who they were, while Bruce was already a working actor with years of experience behind him. But life at home was far from stable. In the early 1950s, his father fell into opium addiction, creating stress and instability within the family. Bruce also struggled in school, bouncing between institutions due to poor academic performance and a rebellious streak that often got him into serious trouble. It was this rebellious energy that eventually led him toward martial arts. In 1953, at the age of 13, a friend named William Chung introduced Bruce to the legendary Wing Chun master Ip Man. Bruce had been getting into more and more street fights, and Chung believed that martial arts training could give him the structure and discipline he desperately needed. However, when Bruce first tried to join Ip Man school, he was turned away. The reason had nothing to do with his skill or attitude. His mother, Grace Ho, was of mixed Chinese and European ancestry, and in traditional martial arts circles of that era, that made Bruce an outsider. Thankfully, William Chung spoke up for him and eventually convinced Ip Man to allow Bruce to train, though even then, some students refused to work with him because of his heritage. Bruce eventually trained privately with Ip Man and a small circle of others, throwing himself into practice with total dedication. His passion for fighting, however, extended beyond the training hall. In 1958, he was involved in a rooftop confrontation with students from a rival martial arts school. Bruce hit back so hard that he knocked out one of the other boys' teeth, and the family went to the police. His mother had to take full responsibility for his actions at the station. Fearing that her son would end up in jail or be targeted by dangerous people, she made the decision to send him back to the United States before things escalated further. That same year, Bruce won the Hong Kong Intercool Boxing Championship, defeating the defending champion in the final round, and also took home the Crown Colony CHA Dancing Championship. He was not simply a brawler. He was physically gifted, precise, and capable of mastering almost anything he put his mind to. At 18, Bruce arrived in Seattle, Washington, and enrolled at Edison Technical School to finish his high school education. He worked as a live-in waiter at the home of a family friend to support himself and, in his spare time, began teaching martial arts. He called his method Junfan Gung Fu, a personal evolution of the Wing Chun style he had studied in Hong Kong. His classes stood out immediately because of who was welcome in them. In a time when many martial arts schools were closed off along racial lines, Bruce opened his doors to everyone, regardless of race or background. His students were black, white, Asian, and Latino. This was a radical and courageous stance in the early 1960s, and it reflected Bruce's deep belief that martial arts belonged to all of humanity. In 1961, Bruce enrolled at the University of Washington, officially studying drama but drawing deeply from philosophy, both Eastern and Western, to shape his thinking. He lived in poverty, washed dishes to make money, and continued refining his martial art. In 1964, He was invited to perform at the Long Beach International Karate Championships in California, where he stunned the crowd with two-finger push-ups and his legendary one-inch punch, a move that sent a grown man flying backward with barely any visible wind-up. His reputation was rapidly growing, but it was also making powerful enemies. The Chinese martial arts community in San Francisco was deeply unhappy with his decision to teach non-Chinese students, feeling that he was exposing sacred traditions to outsiders. When Bruce refused to stop, a challenge was issued. A young martial artist named Wong Jackman was chosen to fight Bruce behind closed doors at his school in Oakland in 1964. With no cameras present and only a handful of witnesses, accounts of what happened that day have contradicted each other ever since. Bruce's wife Linda said the fight lasted just 3 minutes and ended with a clear victory for Bruce, though she noted Bruce was frustrated that it had taken as long as it did. Other witnesses claimed the fight lasted 20 to 25 minutes without a decisive winner. Wong Jackman himself said Bruce fought recklessly, that he held back out of respect, and that Bruce eventually became too exhausted to continue. The truth of that afternoon has never been fully settled. What is certain is the impact the fight had on Bruce's thinking. He came away believing that traditional martial arts systems were too rigid and too full of patterns that broke down in real combat. He began studying boxing, fencing, wrestling, and other disciplines, determined to build something new based entirely on what actually worked. This became the foundation for Jeet Kune Do, his own personal martial philosophy and fighting system. By 1973, Bruce Lee had become one of the most recognizable men in the world. Films like The Big Boss and Fist of Fury had turned him into a superstar across Asia, and Enter the Dragon was on its way to making him a global phenomenon. But on July 20th of that year, Bruce visited the Hong Kong apartment of actress Betty Ting Pei to discuss the script for his upcoming film Game of Death. During the visit, he complained of a headache, and Betty gave him a painkiller called Equagesic, which combined aspirin with a tranquilizer. Bruce lay down to rest and never woke up. He was declared dead at just 32 years old. The fact that he died in a young actress's apartment rather than at home with his wife and children immediately ignited a storm of public speculation. Headlines were filled with questions about his relationship with Betty, and she endured years of cruel judgment despite consistently insisting that she and Bruce were close friends and nothing more. In a 1983 television interview, she spoke about how the rumors had made her life unbearable for a decade, and how deeply unfair they were to both her and to Bruce. The official cause of death was listed as cerebral edema, swelling of the brain, believed at the time to be a rare allergic reaction to the Equagesic tablet. But this explanation never fully satisfied doctors, researchers, or the public. Crucially, it was not widely known at first that just 2 months earlier, in May 1973, Bruce had collapsed on the set of Enter the Dragon with identical symptoms, including a headache, dizziness, and brain swelling. He recovered that time, but no serious follow-up care was documented. Over the years, several alternative theories emerged. Bruce's biographer Matthew Polly pointed out that Bruce had undergone surgery in 1972 to have his underarm sweat glands removed for cosmetic reasons, wanting to appear dry on camera. Some experts argued this may have seriously impaired his body's ability to regulate heat, particularly during the intense summer heat of Hong Kong, potentially leading to heat stroke, which shares several symptoms with what ultimately killed him. Then in 2022, a team of Spanish kidney specialists put forward perhaps the most surprising theory of all, that Bruce Lee died from overhydration. Bruce was known to consume very large amounts of water, juice, and protein shakes throughout the day, particularly during workouts. If a person drinks far more fluid than their kidneys can process, sodium levels in the blood can drop dangerously low, a condition called hyponatremia, which can cause the brain to swell. The most complete picture that has emerged from decades of research suggests that no single factor alone killed Bruce Lee, but rather a combination of vulnerabilities that built upon each other. His earlier episode of brain swelling had left him more susceptible than most. His removed sweat glands limited his body's ability to cool itself in the heat. And his habit of consuming enormous quantities of liquid may have been the final pressure that pushed his system past the point of recovery. Together, these factors created conditions his body simply could not survive. The man celebrated for his control, his discipline, and his extraordinary physical condition was brought down not by a rival or an injury, but by something invisible that had been quietly accumulating inside him. The grief his death left behind was immense and lasting. His wife Linda was 28 years old when she became a widow and a single mother to two young children, 8-year-old Brandon and 4-year-old Shannon. Decades later, tragedy would revisit the family when Brandon Lee, who had followed his father into acting and was on the verge of stardom with his role in The Crow, was accidentally killed on set by a prop gun in March 1993. He was 28 years old. He was buried beside his father in Seattle. Shannon Lee, Bruce's daughter, went on to carry his legacy forward as head of the Bruce Lee Foundation and as a producer of the television series Warrior, a project based on a concept her father had originally pitched years before his death. Through her work, Bruce Lee's ideas about self-expression, personal growth, and the universality of martial arts continue to reach new generations of people around the world.